Live from the 607, it's the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour, where we're talking everything going on in the world of sports. Join in the conversation on social media with the hashtag ODPH, because here we go.
Instead of looking deep inside, every word I have to say, keep it simple.
Welcome to an all-new edition of the ODPH podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. What's happening, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us this week. My name is Ken M. Joining me in studio, as always, you know him. He's a co-host. His name is Padawan J.
Hello, hello, hello.
Folks, we have a lot to talk about in the land of sports, and we definitely want to keep that conversation going with you. So make sure to swing on over to odphpodcast.com. Join in the conversation on our social media accounts. They're all right there on the front page. So easy to find, so easy to follow. Check out Parlay Points. New blogs are dropping every day. The Classifieds, the Directory, the Patreon, the T Public Store, anything and everything that is the ODPH can be found at odphpodcast.com. And always remember on social media to use the hashtag ODPHpod. Kicking off this edition of the show, though, we have to recap a wild night of UFC action.
Holy shit.
And arguably the biggest comeback win in recent history. I know it's been getting a lot of media attention, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
But there's a lot to dissect with what happened in the main event of UFC 278. But let's break down the main card and talk about what happened on that night, Pat.
So the first match you had on the main card was in the light heavyweight division, where you had Tyson Pedro defeat Harry Honsucker via TKO, that being body kick and punches, at 1 minute and 5 seconds into the first round.
Honestly, this wasn't really a big surprise for me.
Nah.
I think we kind of mentioned on the show that we thought Pedro was going to go and steal this one easily. Obviously, the light heavyweight division is a very messy one right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm trying to find a nice way to put it, but there's no real clear-cut contenders right now. So it's open, fair game. So if you can put a couple wins together, you can sneak up there. It's not like of old where it was really deep. Now it's in that transition phase. Obviously, a new champion. You're going to have that.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we go from here? It's kind of hard to say because you're looking at the rankings right now, and really is this a big enough jump for Pedro to get up there, Pat?
I'm pulling it up right now because I actually haven't looked at these. It doesn't even look like he's cracked the top 15 yet.
Yeah.
So not yet. I mean, I think it gives him credence and an argument to maybe fight one of those guys. Maybe in the 10 to 15 range, so from 10 to 15 in the UFC light heavyweight division, and I'm looking at UFC.com/rankings. Number 10, you've got Paul Craig. Number 11, Nikita Krylov. Number 12 is Ryan Spahn. Number 13 is Johnny Walker. 14 is Dustin Jacoby. And number 15 is Jimmy Crute. So I think it might give him credence or give him an excuse or a reason to fight one of those guys maybe and then go from there. Is it enough to crack the top 10? No, but I think, does it give you an avenue to fight one of those, 10 to 15 guys? Sure.
It's got to be something and definitely get his name in the top 15 range. But for Pedro, I don't really know necessarily there's a clear-cut next contender for him, because I know there's a couple fights coming up that could draw some attention. I know Johnny Walker, who's currently ranked number 13, I know he has a fight coming up. If he wins that one, I think that's a fight you could make. I know in stretch they have Dominic Reyes versus Ryan Spahn coming up too.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, I guess you could do that one, but I still think that's too high for him. I think you need to keep him somewhere around that 10 to 15 range. Johnny Walker would be a perfect opponent for him, depending on how he does in his next fight. I think that one makes a lot more sense to me because everybody else, like I said, even I think Spahn's got a real jump in contendership too against Dominic Reyes as well. So in that range, you can definitely do some things. I mean, Paul Craig would be another fight that he could definitely have. I just don't know necessarily if that's enough to give him a skyrocketing boost.
Sure.
Like in some of the other divisions, yeah, you could do that, sure, but I just don't see how that plays out, though. That's just me.
Next up was in the women's bantamweight division, where you had Luce Poldova defeat Wu Yanan, and that was done via TKO in the 4 minutes and 4 seconds into the second round, and that was done via elbows.
So obviously a pretty straightforward fight in this one. Nothing really to write home about, I would think, in comparison. And obviously for the women's bantamweight division, you definitely got to get somebody to step up and challenge Amanda Nunes. So this could be the start of something. But like I say, when you have a champion that's so dominant, it's kind of hard to really predict who's going to go from
Yeah.
here. But this is a very solid win, so we got to kind of see where it kind of plays out from here.
Yeah, and it's a good return for Luce, just because I'm looking at her record on her Wikipedia page. She did have a run briefly in the UFC from, 2017 through 2020, but she only won 2 fights during that stretch and losing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of them.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously she was, after that, she wasn't making any fights in the UFC, so maybe she was cut. Maybe she just wasn't doing other things. Not sure. But she does. It's a good comeback for her. So we'll see where this goes. I would say it's not in the same vein as what we were talking about with the last fight. We're like, oh, hey, let's give them a 10 to 15 rank match so that we can move them up in the rankings. I think she needs maybe one more fight before we make that next decision.
I could see that happening too. I think that's a good call on that one, because that's the thing. A lot of these fights that were on this card, you didn't really have like clear-cut contenders or the ones that are really in that 10 to 15 range. So if anybody's moving up from here, with the exception of the next 3 fights we're going to be discussing, then you really got to say, okay, who's around that 10 to 15 range, and that would make a lot more sense. With that one too, I do agree, but with how it's uncertain with the bantamweight division,
yeah,
because obviously with Nunes back as champion, it's pretty much fair game about like who can step up and make a run. So you never know; they might put her next opponent against somebody in that 10 to 15 range too.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think maybe one more fight, and you can definitely make that argument.
Next up was in the bantamweight division, where you had Merab Dvalishvili defeat Jose Aldo via unanimous decision, 29-28, 29-28, and 30-27.
So this one, I always hate saying snooze fest, but I don't think this had enough fireworks, so to speak, for Merab.
Yeah.
I think he fought a very sound fight. I thought Aldo, I don't want to say he looked a half step slower, but I think Father Time was kind of catching him up to him a little bit.
Well, he is currently 35 years old, turns 36 here in about a couple of weeks on September the 9th. And he has now fought, scrolling down to it, 39 professional matches, stretching all the way back. And now, bear in mind, this is professional. This ain't count amateur or anything like that. His first fight was on the 10th of August of 2004.
Yeah, so
There's some tread on that tires.
there's tread on those tires, and like I say, there's no shame to be made with this as well, too. I mean, he's fought a very, very legendary career. In this division right now, I don't see him getting another run at the title, per se.
No.
He would need a little bit of luck if he's going to really progress forward. And as for Merab, honestly, Dana White, to paraphrase a little bit in the post-fight presser, kind of said, this really did not impress me enough to get him in a real great position moving forward.
That's interesting because I'm looking at UFC.com/rankings. And in the bantamweight division, obviously Aljamain Sterling is the champion.
Mm-hmm.
Number 1 ranked fighter, Peter Yan. Number 2 ranked fighter, TJ Dillashaw. And the number 3 ranked fighter, moving up 3 spots from where he was previously, Merab Dvalishvili.
Yeah, because if I'm not mistaken, they just flip-flopped him and Aldo for rankings.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah, which that's kind of an interesting play they do for the rankings. And
They matter.
Oh, yeah, exactly. That's the whole thing about those.
Much like AEW.
Shots fired, Pad.
Am I wrong?
No, I did not say you were at all. And I think that's something that we got to kind of look at here, too, because I wouldn't bump him up to 3 after that performance. Definitely would not. I maybe would have gone up 1, maybe 2.
Well, you could argue, too.
Yeah, I mean, it's a real stretch, but I didn't really see anything too much that stood out and said, like, wow, he really needs a title shot.
Well, and I mean, he is on a great stretch. I mean, he has won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 fights in a row now, which is very impressive, because he beat Tyrion Ware by unanimous decision, Brad Katona by unanimous decision, Casey Kenny by unanimous decision, Gustavo Lopez by unanimous decision, John Dodson by unanimous decision, Cody Stammen by unanimous decision. He knocked out Marlon Moraes. And he beat Jose Aldo by unanimous decision. So it's a great run, but if you notice, the one thing I kept saying over and over during that,
unanimous decision,
which if it were like knockout, submission, decision, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, no, give this guy a title opportunity, but like, you're winning, but it's not exactly sexy.
No, it's not, and especially in this day and age, you got to win very dominantly. You need to put on exceptional performances to get your name in those top echelon spots. Merab didn't. I mean, yeah, beating Jose Aldo is a name, sure.
Yeah, it is.
But especially when you take a look at who's ahead of him in those rankings, Peter Yan, TJ Dillashaw, Aljamain Sterling, if you're going to be in that kind of talk, you really need to do something to stand out. And wow, and I'm sorry, it just did not happen with this performance. I didn't really sit there, and from what I saw from it, I was just like, no. I mean, he's winning this fight, sure. I'll give him that, but I didn't sit there and go like, man, I want to see him in a title shot. Not at this stage, and not after that performance.
No.
I think the only place you can go right now with him is I would put him up against number 4 Corey Sandhagen.
Sure.
I think if you did that, you could definitely make a really good argument for that. And then for Aldo, honestly, where do you go from here?
I mean, at this point, he's 35. He's about to turn 36. I don't see another title run in his future unless he goes on some crazy, knockout spree. So I would say do some legacy fights, help promote some guys, finish out the contract, and then let him retire.
Yeah, I mean, if they really want to do a fun fight just for the nostalgia reasons, I'm looking at the rankings, and I know Dominic Cruz just lost. That would be a fun one for old-time fans.
Yeah.
Because obviously, Dominic Cruz, legendary bantamweight champion.
Mm-hmm.
Jose Aldo, legendary featherweight champion.
I'll say, yeah, they've never fought.
I mean, that's a fight you could make if they want to do that. Or, you slide more down the card for him. It's just a sense of, with Aldo's performance against Merab, I didn't really see too much in him that was, he didn't look like he had the same fire in him. I'm sorry, it just looked like Father Time caught up to him a little bit. Or you can start seeing the slow creep of that.
Mm-hmm.
So I just don't really see him hanging around that top echelon. Like I could see him, somewhere around that 6'10", maybe get a win and bounce back and do something there. And I think Cruz is a name that you can definitely do. But as far as like anybody higher in that ranking, I just don't see how you do that right now. I just don't. And then it's going to be really interesting to see how this all shakes up, because I know we do know that there are some crazy bookings going on. I mean, Peter Yan is still scheduled to face Sean O'Malley.
Yeah.
I still haven't figured out how 1 taking on 13, but we chalk that up to what, Pad? Reasons. So anything is possible, but I just don't see this happening any other way.
No.
And for Merab, like I say, you give him the number 4, that can be a fight that could happen if depending on what Sandhagen's next fight is going on.
Yeah.
That's the one I would do, but we'll have to wait and see.
Next up was the co-main event of the evening, and that was in the middleweight division, where you had Paulo Costa defeat Luke Rockhold by unanimous decision, 30-27, 30-27, and 30-27.
All right. Pad, your thoughts on this?
I mean, it went the way we thought it was going to go. I mean, listen, no disrespect to Luke Rockhold. He is a very good fighter in the UFC. I don't know if I call him a legend. I got to kind of wait and let that one simmer before I call him a legend. He's not a guarantee in my book.
Yeah.
But he's a very good fighter, a very storied career. I mean, you go back and you look through some of the names he's beaten: Jacare, Tim Kennedy, Weidman, Machida, Bisping, just to name a few. But also, as we said last week, his last fight was against Jan Blachowicz on July 6th of 2019. And his last win was in September of 2017. So it's been 5 years since the guy won. Whatever he's got going on, I don't know. I'm not going to pass judgment on it. It is what it is. So, I mean, I kind of wonder why we made this fight and why Rockhold came back, because if I'm not mistaken, because I wasn't able to watch the fight, I was busy. He came out after the fight was over and basically retired then and there. He essentially said he's done.
It was one of those situations that I think they gave it to Costa because they really wanted to keep him in that top 5 talk for the middleweight division. Obviously, he's a name. Now, am I super impressed with him? No, not anymore. I think after Adesanya, you ran right through him. It's a situation of, all right, where do you go from here? As long as Adesanya still has a belt, you can't really do too much with him.
Right. I mean, it's good for Costa because he bounced back. He'd lost his last 2 fights one against Marvin Vettori and then one against Stylebender, which losing Stylebender ain't nothing to really hang your head about.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same token, I'm looking at the rankings on UFC.com. This fight did fuck all for him because these rankings have updated. There's the little up arrow, down arrow with the number next to them for how many spots they've moved. And I'm looking at the middleweight division where you've got Israel Adesanya, still a champion. Robert Whittaker's your number 1 fighter, not moving. Jared Cannonier is your number 2 fighter, hasn't moved. You've got, and this is weird because they've got two listed twice. They've got Marvin Vettori listed as the number 2 ranked fighter as well, with him moving up 1 spot. They've got Derek Brunson listed as number 4, having not moved. Alex Pereira as your number 5 ranked fighter, having not moved. Paulo Costa, number 6, hasn't moved. So, like, hey, good for Costa. It was a bounce back win for you after 2 losses in a row. But in terms of the rankings and giving yourself an argument for, hey, I should be in consideration for that next title fight, this did fuck all for you. I mean, great. You won one of the prizes of the night for match of the night, I think. Well, yeah, fight of the night. So you got a $50,000 bonus, but what the fuck did it do for you?
Well, that's the whole thing. It was more of a send-off for Rockhold and letting him have that one last moment in the sun. Granted, the whole wiping of blood on him and from the down position. Yeah. I don't get. I'm just kind of saying.
I got issues with that medically. That's weird.
It was a weird thing to watch. So I'm just saying whatever happens in the cage happens in the cage. That just was very, very puzzling to see.
Yeah.
But for Costa, I know he had a rough go with this one too. I mean, he's getting tested super early in the morning by USADA, if memory serves me right, on the weigh-in day.
Yeah, the day of weigh-ins, he got tested super early, which I don't think should happen.
No, that should never have happened. As much as I'm not a fan of him, I would not say that's proper procedure.
Only thing I can think of, because that doesn't strike me. I've never heard of USADA doing that before. The only thing I can think of is it was a clerical error. Somebody at USADA headquarters realized, fuck, we haven't tested this guy for legal purposes or whatever. We got to test this guy.
Yeah, but
that's the only thing I can think of.
During a weight cut, that's tough.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
That's not right. So the question is, where does Costa go in here? Because Rockhold's done, and
Rockhold's done.
He had a noteworthy career.
Yeah.
Like I say, I wouldn't call him a Hall of Famer.
No,
I don't think he's done enough to really warrant that. But we'll have to wait and see on that. But for Costa, I mean, there's only so many fights he can do at this stage. He's obviously not getting a shot at Adesanya right now.
No.
He'd have to hope Pereira beats him, and then maybe you can talk about him sneaking up there and to get a shot at him. I wouldn't doubt that maybe you try running something with Kanye.
Yeah, I could see that.
Because obviously he just lost Adesanya, so you could make that argument. I mean, maybe.
Let's say if Pereira's next up against Stylebender, have Pereira fight Stylebender, and in the meantime, in between time, have Costa fight Kanye. And if Costa beats Kanye, he's next up, and if Kanye beats Costa, well, fuck.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing you can do, because, I mean, to my knowledge, and if you don't mind checking for me, has Costa ever fought in Vittori?
Let me see. Yes, he just lost to in October of last year to Marvin Vettori.
See, that's how forgettable that fight was.
Yeah, it was 5-minute rounds, and it was the light heavyweight debut for Costa. And then in the notes it says Costa was deducted 1 point in round 2 due to an eye poke.
See, like I said,
it's also forgettable it was a fight night, so it wasn't like a main card.
Right, but still, it's just for him, it just doesn't stand out, and I think that's unfortunately where he is at this stage.
Yeah.
Because I'm just looking at the rankings, like for him and Vettori, you could run that back, I guess, because I don't see where Vittori's getting a title shots anytime soon. Kanye makes the most sense to me, but then again, who knows what the UFC is going to do.
Yeah, and if you're at home confused why I mentioned that last fight between Marvin Vettori and Paulo Costa was in the light heavyweight division when they're both ranked in the middleweight division, according to the Wikipedia page for the UFC Fight Night Costa versus Vettori fight, which was on the October 23rd, 2021. Wikipedia page reads, quote, a middleweight bout between former UFC middleweight championship title challengers Paulo Costa and Marvin Vettori headlined the event. In the days leading up to the event, the bout was shifted to a catch weight of 195 pounds.
That's right.
And then ultimately to a light heavyweight due to weight cut issues with Costa. As a result, he forfeited 20% of his fight purse to Vettori. I wouldn't be opposed. So with all that, background, I wouldn't be opposed to having them go against each other again. You had some issues with the last one. Clearly Costa wasn't at peak fighting form, I guess you could say, if he's having weight cut issues.
Well,
he could run it back.
But because I don't know how much he cuts down, but he is a large 185. So to see him having weight cut issues, I'm not super surprised.
He's got to cut down super far. If it was supposed to be a middleweight fight, and ended up being a light heavyweight fight.
Oh, yeah.
Well, holy fuck, he's got to cut down huge.
He's doing some cut like Rumble Johnson used to do to get down to
Jesus.
It's something like that. Like
that was huge.
Yeah, when he was really doing those crazy cuts, which
not healthy.
I was going to say.
Don't do it at home.
Yeah, Costa was doing something like that. But that's why I say that fight was so forgettable that honestly they should run it back because you know what? Like I say, I wouldn't give him the number 2 after that performance against Rockhold. I'm sorry.
No.
Like I know that's one they probably will because what else are you going to do with Kanye right now? But I just because then what happens if Costa wins? He beats your number 2 guy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you got to make a choice then. But
that's why I say if they do end up going with Costa Cannonier, if Costa beats Cannonier, he gets Adesanya next. But if Cannonier wins, well, fuck, what are we gonna do now?
No, that's the whole thing. You can't run that back. Like the only thing the UFC can kind of quietly hope for is maybe Pereira wins and defeats Adesanya just to clear up that logjam, because it's like, what are you going to do? See, this is one problem when they have such a dominant champion. Like we talk about with Nunez and we talk with Adesanya, and well, we were talking about that with Usman until obviously Saturday night.
Yeah.
But it's a situation you have that it's like when you have such a dominant champion that's running through your division, who are you going to get to face that you have to sell the fight with? Because we have to remember still, it's a sport, yes, but it's still a business, too.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is why the whole Conor McGregor tag to every single fight is still relevant. This is why you have a Diaz brother that's attached to every single fight, and that could sell. Like, there's reasons for it. It's called business, and they're there to make money. So
the reason Jones is still employed.
Yeah, rumor 282, allegedly.
Believe it when I see it.
Yeah, until he actually walks in the octagon, wait and see, ...
Next up is our main event of the evening, the fight you were all there to watch, and that was in the welterweight division for the welterweight championship, where you had Leon Edwards shock the world, knocking off the then pound-for-pound number 1 ranked fighter in the world, in Kamaru Usman, with a head kick in 4 minutes and 4 seconds of the 5th round. Now, while I didn't watch the fight, I did catch the clip of the knockout, and I gotta say, the commentators were writing off Leon Edwards for dead. Like, that corpse was buried and the buzzards were circling.
Well, you have to think about this, too. If you saw the scorecard, Edwards won the first round. He actually got a takedown on Usman. So that was like the one earth-shattering thing that, like, okay, maybe, just maybe, Leon Edwards is going to fight. Because as we talked about on the show last week, Leon Edwards is a very good fighter. There's no question he is not a skilled athlete. But he's not exactly a sizzle reel knockout artist. He's not going to sit there and really sell you on the trash talk. He's not going to really step that up. He will go in there and he will grind and he will outpoint, and he fights a very smart fight. Like I say, not a sexy fight, but he'll fight smart. So seeing him in this, the fact that he got a takedown on Usman, that sent shockwaves because Kamaru Usman was the pound-for-pound best fighter in the world. Like, nobody was coming near him. Then, second, third, fourth round, Usman started applying pressure. He started taking over. And he started doing what Usman does. He starts picking opponents apart, beating them at their own game. So he was starting to nail some shots back. It's just kind of a weird situation to see. But in that 5th round, I mean, Usman had it on cruise control. And then suddenly, Leon Edwards hits him with a head kick out of nowhere with a minute left. And knocks him out cold.
Yeah.
So it's a wild thing to see. Pat, you got the scorecard up now?
Yeah, so I'm looking at the scorecards. All 3 judges scored the first round 10-9 to Leon Edwards. And then afterwards, all 3 judges scored rounds 2, 3, and 4, 10-9 in favor of Kamaru Usman. So at that point, it was 39-37 Kamaru Usman.
Yeah, so I'm sure that everybody's writing it off too, as they should have. Like, listen, it's not to say Edwards was going to win or wasn't going to steal a round, maybe. I mean, that's how you never know when it goes in the judges' hands. Usman looked great the rest of the fight, except he let his guard down and he got caught with one. And, like, listen, I'll say this. Kudos to Leon Edwards. We wrote him out for dead. I'll be the first one to say we did.
Yeah, we did.
But you know what? He showed up and he showed a tremendous amount of heart. And there's a great TikTok video out right now. At least that's where I caught it from Ariel Helwani, who has been sitting there screaming about, like, how everybody wrote Leon Edwards off, never had a chance, and just you show his corner, keeping him pumped up through the fight. It's a great video. Then, you know, well, maybe I'll see if we can share it somewhere. But this is what goes into this whole sport, that Leon Edwards left it all in the cage. So he knew this was going to be his one shot. He knew it took forever to get here. He made the most of it.
I mean, he's been on a hell of a run just because his last loss in the UFC, holy fuck, was against Kamaru Usman on the 19th of December, 2015. Since then, he's won 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 fights, and he's had 1 no contest, and that was because of an accidental eye poke.
Yep, against
Bilal Muhammad.
Yep.
You know, so he's had the 1 no contest, but literally everything else is just wins.
Right. And like I say, he wins. He's smart with his fighting. Like I say, if you really love a technical fight, he's your guy.
I'll say a lot of decisions.
Yeah, but that's what he does. Like, he fights very, very smart. And like I say, it's not the sexiest of fights to watch. You're not going to see a lot of knockouts, but I'll tell you what, This knockout was the biggest one of his career. The only thing that comes close to this of such a dramatic finish is Chael Sonnen Anderson Silva 1.
Oh, very true.
That's the only one that comes close in my mind. This was one of the biggest upsets in UFC history.
In terms of just like the ramifications of it, yes. In terms of money, probably not.
No, I mean, the biggest one ever, in my opinion, is Matt Serra over GSP.
Yeah.
That was the one I think anybody that tells you Serra had a chance in that one is completely wrong. Edwards did not look like he had a chance, but then again, that's just how dominant Kamaru Usman was and is to a degree. I mean, he had one bad night. We have to remember this. This is not defining his legacy. Because now the question is, where do you go from here? I think it's pretty obvious you got to run it back.
Yeah, I think you have to.
You got to do it at a third time. The only way they would not do this is a couple options that will stem out of the next UFC fight card.
Okay.
And that is Chimaev versus Nate Diaz. So there is a couple different things we can go with here.
Yeah.
One scenario is if they are, and granted, they're very, very high on Chimaev, and rightfully so. Guy sells tickets, guy's box office. If he beats Nate Diaz outright, like let's say a first-round win.
Sure.
Then you can make the argument, plug him right into a title shot, let him go, and that's a fight that can sell itself. The other option that could happen here is if Nate Diaz pulls off that win.
Oh, boy.
You would have to argue that you could run Diaz and Edwards back. You could argue that. It all depends on what Usman wants to do. Now, I can imagine what he's probably saying is, how soon can I get back in the cage?
Right.
I would say that that's probably the most even money bet ever. It just depends, though, if not wishing he gets hurt or anything, but if he does get hurt in camp, then you have to get a replacement fight for it. Either one of those gentlemen would be a great substitute.
He does typically, it looks like, fight at least twice a year. Fought twice in 2021. Obviously, 2020 is a whole anomaly in and of itself.
Yeah.
Fought twice in 2019, same in 2018, 2017, 2016. So he does appear to fight at least twice a year.
Yeah, so it's hard to say. It really is. But I think Usman is definitely going to be the one that I think they should run it back immediately. I don't think there's any question of that. It just depends on what the UFC is really thinking of doing. I mean, like I say, they have some options now, and that's the one good thing with having a new champion. It just depends on what's the right decision to do, and especially for Usman, what does he want to do? Because, like I say, for me, it's a no-brainer. He goes immediate rematch, and we have that arguably by the end of the year. I would say maybe the New Year's Eve week. But I'm not sure what the UFC is really thinking. And depends on what he wants to do, because if he wanted to move up in weight, he could.
Yeah.
And depending on what Adesanya does. I mean, like I say, he has got a couple options now, but I think the safe one is run it back. Just the only thing is, if they really want to get Chimaev in a title shot, which
it's more than likely going to happen.
Yeah, because they're cashing in on that hype train. Would they? I mean, I can't see him skipping it, but I mean, you have to say it's in the realm of possibility.
Yeah.
Would they skip over and then Usman come back at the end of the year, fight Chimaev? I mean, it's a gutsy call, but you know, what would the UFC do about this? That's the argument we got right now, because UFC 278 and had arguably the biggest surprise win of the year, I guess. Like, I don't know how else you can describe it.
Well, it's the biggest surprise.
I have to say, is it an upset? Yeah, in a lot of people's minds, and especially ours, because Kamaru Usman was so dominant. Seeing him get stopped that way,
yeah,
absolutely mind-blowing, absolutely insane. Does not happen, and yet here we are. So now the question becomes, will they let him have his trilogy fight? Because I think you have to, and I think that's the only option that comes out of that one. But that's why we're asking you, the ODPH Society. Hit us up on the hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts coming out of UFC 278? Are we running it back for a third time with Usman and Edwards? What about Paulo Costa? What do you do from there? And then the Bantamweight situation. Talk to us about that, because that's turned out to be a little more messier than we thought. All of that and so much more. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
Hello, good morning, hi everyone. My name is Nicholas Haskins, and I host a weekly podcast called Nikolai's Kitchen, which is all about my personal journey inside the kitchen and out. Each week I explore my passion for food and share some positivity, and I break down a featured recipe for you to make at home. To show all about the ups and downs of cooking, baking, and living. I'm not a chef, I'm just a guy who loves cooking from scratch and trying to make a difference in the world. Tune in every Monday for a brand new episode on a podcatcher near you. Just remember, never stop believing in yourself. Thank you so much for coming on this journey with me.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. Pad, let's talk some pro wrestling, shall we?
Sure.
WWE is still in a renaissance, and a lot of good things are happening on their programming, so let's take it around the shows and talk about it, shall we?
Yes, we'll talk SmackDown last week. Pretty good show. Notably, it was their 1200th episode of SmackDown. Wild to think, because I remember feels like just yesterday they were celebrating 1,000. Christ almighty, can't believe they're already at 12,000. Of note, I'm not gonna start doing like 6 or 7 TWS. We won't run through everything, although admittedly there were only 3 matches on the show. But of note, Ronda Rousey continues to do Ronda Rousey things, even though she's technically, air quotes, quote unquote, suspended. Continues to show up on SmackDown. Much to the chagrin of Adam Pearce. Adam Pearce, hey, you got to leave. Can't be here anymore. No, I'm not leaving. Well, fine. Then I'll have security escort you out. She then assaulted security, and then she was, quote unquote, arrested. So, yeah, we'll see where it goes with that. But if she can't, hey, keep showing up. It's pretty funny.
Well, that's the whole thing with her. I mean, obviously, that she's not in the title picture, so to speak, of what's going on at the moment, because Liv Morgan has a title match against Shayna Baszler at the Clash at the Castle. So Ronda's still hovering around that smart storytelling, because obviously she's connected to both Liv, because she just lost to Liv, and Shayna, because Shayna's a longtime friend of hers. So this makes sense to see this play out. And plus, this keeps Ronda in the title talk and keeps her on screen, but she doesn't need to overshadow the storyline. So I really do like how this came out.
You had Bailey, Io Sky, and then Dakota Kai were also ringside, I guess you could say, or front row behind Michael Cole to kind of scout the competition. Boy, Michael Cole gets Vince McMahon out of his ear, and Bailey's back to be in his ear.
Yes.
They bought tickets, so that was pretty funny. You had a backstage segment with Sami Zayn, which, my God, Sami Zayn making money out of everything, because this entire segment was amazing.
Yeah, you know that he's definitely stepping up, and especially now with Triple H letting him run free. Sammy has one of the most interesting minds in all pro wrestling. So he's taking a lot of chances. He's doing some stuff that might be kind of a little left to center, but you know what? It's working. So can't argue that.
Had a pre-taped promo from Scarlett Bordeaux and Karrion Kross, building up the potential feud between him and either Roman or Drew, or both. We'll see. Definitely excited for that. You had a 5-way or 5-man match taking place in the ring with Sammy between, Ricochet, Madcap Moss, Sheamus, Happy Corbin, and Sami Zayn. This was for an IC title match at Clash at the Castle. Partway through it, Sammy ducked to the back because he was, quote unquote, hurt. He was injury, so it made it a fatal 4-way. But then Sammy came back and was about to win. Corbin pulled him out before he could get the pin. And the French Canadian crowd gave him a very loud chant of "asshole, asshole, asshole."
Yes, that's right, because they were touring through Canada this week.
Yes, they are.
So they were in Montreal and Toronto?
Yep. They were in Montreal for SmackDown, Toronto for Raw. So for the winner of that match, and will now be facing Gunther at Clash at the Castle, you'll have Sheamus, which I got to say, not totally surprised by this. It's in the UK, so it's close to Ireland. It's in the same neck of the woods. So once they announced this, I was like, oh, hey, cool. And then I saw Sheamus was in it. I'm like, okay, yeah, Sheamus is winning.
You know what? I'm not saying he's going to be honest with you.
Well, I mean for the
for the 5-way, yeah, the 5-way.
Well, they announced the 5-way, and it was for the IC title match at Clash at the Castle. And I'm like, okay, Sheamus is in it. He's going to win the 5-way.
Yeah, see, I was thinking it might have gone to Madcap Moss, just out of like keeping it, traditional face versus heel.
Sure.
But Sheamus is in an interesting position. Now, obviously, him against Gunther, that's going to be a hard-hitting match.
Jesus Christ. Not for the faint of heart.
No, definitely not. So that's a good curveveball they decided to throw at it. And especially going over to the UK audience, that has big-time fight feel to it.
There was a cinematic segment with the Viking Raiders.
Yeah.
Having a Viking funeral for New Day, which, got to say, Somebody's been watching the TV show Vikings, which I know I have. I've been going through watching that. But similar to some of the stuff they show on that show, so what you see in this whole segment. So very accurate, at least to what Vikings show on TV.
Yeah, like I said, it wasn't my favorite thing to see this week, but you know what? I give respect for it. It was something different, and especially they're really playing heavy now for the Viking Raiders into that TV show-esque homage.
Yeah. You had a match between Liv Morgan and Shotzi, which you had Liv Morgan emerge victorious. But then once the match was over, Shayna came out because they are facing each other at Clash at the Castle. You had Shayna threaten to break Liv Morgan's arm, but she goes, no, I know how this works. I know if I do this now, I won't be able to face you at Clash at the Castle. I'll do it at Clash at the Castle.
Yeah.
Which was good.
Yeah, it's good. It served its purpose.
Yeah. And then you had at the end Drew and Roman scrapping in the ring, which, hey, it's the normal scrapping in the ring stuff. Drew emerged victorious. You had Sammy eat a Claymore from Drew to try and sacrifice himself since the Usos couldn't be there because why? Reasons. Although if you read online, you know why. Mm-hmm. That's all we're going to say. But so Sammy was there to take the Claymore, but yet Drew still emerged victorious, I guess you could say, quote unquote, standing tall, holding both belts to close the show.
Yeah, so it was definitely a fun show, and especially we do have to acknowledge too that there was the NXT tag team champs, or former women's tag team champs that came up.
Yeah, so you had Gigi Dolan and JC Jane replacing the injured Zoe Starks, and then quote unquote, air quotes, injured Nikita Lyons stepped in, emerged victorious, beating Natalia and Sonya Deville to move on in the women's tag team championship tournament. However, during the match, apparently Gigi Dolan got injured, so they are now no longer able to compete for the tournament. So on this upcoming episode of SmackDown, which I gotta imagine this is pushing the whole thing back a little bit now because they're having to do this. They're now having, because there was supposed to be, I guess you could say, the semifinal tournament or whatever, semifinal match to determine who's moving on to the finals, because we'll get to the Raw one. We know who, on the one side of the Raw side of the bracket, I guess you could say, because that's been aired, those matches have been airing on Raw. We know who's in the final from that side. From this side, we were supposed to figure out who's in the final this week, but since we're not going to be able to because they're having a second chance fatal four-way with the other four teams who have been eliminated on SmackDown this Friday. So I got to imagine this whole tournament's getting pushed back a week now, which is what it is, but this whole tournament's cursed.
Yeah, well, I definitely have to wait to see about that, but it's unfortunate, though, because I was super excited to see Toxic Attraction get called to the main roster for this. But the Fatal 4-Way is going to be interesting for the second chance. And then, obviously, when they decide to have the finals for the tourney, that should be a great match.
That should be amazing.
Whoever comes out of this one. This has been actually a really fun tournament to watch.
No, the wrestling's been great. It's been really fun. We then switch over to Monday Night Raw, which emanated from Toronto, Canada, which meant Edge was going to be making his in-ring return, as they noted on the show, in Toronto, Canada, for the first time in over 10 years. Show opened up with Rollins and Riddle brawling backstage. And, hey, shout out Michael P.S. Hayes.
Yes.
Go back and watch the clip if you can find it. So they're brawling in Gorilla, right by the entrance, and the security comes running in. WWE officials come running in, and noticeably all of the positions where guys are normally sitting in Gorilla, where the chairs were empty, until they went far enough over in the middle of Gorilla, and you just see Michael P.S. Hayes lean back, arms folded, legs kicked out, just chilling.
Yeah.
I cracked up laughing, so that was funny.
It was a fun moment.
That was funny. So they came out. That opened the show. You had Trish Stratus officially open up Raw, making a return. She's been touring with them over the weekend. And you had Bayley and her crew come out like, hey, we're great to see you. We're such big fans. Why the fuck are you here?
Yeah.
So you had a little back and forth. I thought they were going to I did love the one line from Trish. I am retired, but it's very easy to change that sentence to was retired.
That would have been epic. And I tell you what, that place would have came unglued if she did.
They teased it about 3 times. Once there, and then another one later in the night with Aaliyah. I thought they were going to tease her teaming up with Aaliyah later in the night, but did not come back. You then had a match between Dolph Ziggler and Finn Balor, which, hey, got to note, new music for Finn Balor. Not sure how I feel about it, because I like the old music.
Yeah, but he's a heel.
That's true.
That's what you have to switch it up. You can't, when you do a character change from face to heel and heel to face, you have to switch up the music. Rarely does it work if you try flip-flopping.
Yeah. I gotta say, I did love the back and forth between Dolph and Finn backstage, because Finn called Dolph an old man, and Dolph just looked at Finn and goes, "Wait, aren't we the same age?"
Yeah. No, they were definitely having some fun, and that's more of the creative freedom that you're seeing now with Triple H.
Yeah.
Because he's now allowing the entire roster to just breathe a little bit and just let their personalities shine through. And Dolph, obviously, having the comedic background that he does, this worked out perfect.
Yeah, no, that was great. As I mentioned earlier, you had a backstage interview with Sarah Schreiber interviewing Aaliyah. She was like, it's kind of weird that Raquel Rodriguez isn't here, your tag team partner. She was interrupted by Bayley. You had Bayley return in the ring for the first time in over a year, about a year and a half maybe. Had a match between Bayley and Aaliyah, which you had Bayley emerge victorious. It was a good match, all things considered.
Oh, yeah, Bayley looks like she hasn't missed a step.
Yeah. And then you also, next up, you had a match with Alpha Academy and doing an open challenge, which, got to say two things. One, Chad Gable said nothing wrong about Toronto. Let's be real.
Get him, Pat. Get him.
Maple Leafs suck. But then it had an open challenge. I thought they were going to do, because what happened on NXT with Santos Escobar being kicked out of, had to leave NXT. Thought, and this being around 9 o'clock, it was a little after 9 o'clock. I was like, ooh, we're gonna get Legado del Fantasma, his faction up on the main roster, maybe. Didn't, though, because Kevin Owens came out and wiped the floor with Chad Gable.
Yeah, I was going to say Alpha Academy there.
Alpha Academy, yeah, wiped the floor.
Yeah, no, this was a fun segment, especially with Kevin being back in Toronto, too. That place came unglued. He definitely was the face in this equation. And this was just a fun match. And Chad Gable is somebody, too, that's now emerging finally. They're letting him run with the ball a little bit. He's always had the athletic ability, but now this whole shush character.
Shush.
It's working, and it's getting over now, especially Triple H is definitely backing him about this. So there's a lot of win to be had here, and this was just fun with Kevin Owens, especially with the embrace that him and Sami Zayn had on Friday night, too.
Which, got to say, Kevin Owens has got a new shirt, or should I say a revamped old shirt.
Yes.
With the duct tape KO on it. Oh, boy.
Yeah, he's going back to what really made him KO, which under Triple H, you're going to see a lot more of this happening. That maybe it's going to be a little modernized retro look to a few wrestlers that we know.
Could be.
But this is something that definitely pans into the fans, and especially the internet fans, too, because once there was a little talk of Kevin and Sami getting back together, too. And I forget where I was reading it, and it came across the wires in a couple different places, that they would like to have a tag team run.
I think Kevin has pitched that idea, and I know the crowd, when Kevin Owens was kind of getting quote-unquote jumped, or 2-on-1, the crowd was chanting Sami, and I thought it would have been a great opportunity for Sami to come out.
Oh, I do too.
But it didn't happen. But no, I would love to see them tag together and get tag team championships. That'd be awesome.
I wouldn't doubt we see that at WrestleMania. I'm just going to put this out there right now.
There's a potential matchup that I think you would be excited for, and I'll bring it up in a little bit.
Okay. I think I know where you're going, and I'll mark out when you say it.
So next up was a tag team matchup between Ciampa and The Miz taking on Bobby Lashley and AJ Styles. The winner was, who the fuck cares? I don't even think there was a winner. I think it was a DQ finish, whatever the fuck it was, because partway through the match, on the what used to be the announcer side, so opposite the entrance side, you had AJ Styles was by the barricade, where there's you hop over the barricade, like where the Shield used to come down. It used to come through the crowd, and they'd hop over that part of the barricade. There was somebody tried to jump AJ and tried to grab and bring him over the barricade. And I even messaged you, Russia, because they pulled the hood back, and I'm like, wait, who the fuck is that?
Yeah.
And then they kind of, even the announcers, Jimmy Smith, Corey Graves and Byron Saxton were like, wait, what the fuck? What is with our security? How is this happening? And then the match kind of continues for another 5 seconds, and then you flop to the opposite side, so a couple feet down the barricade. You then see somebody sitting there in a SWAT gear, helmet and all, and the crowd's kind of freaking out because they see him there, and the helmeted figure stands up, turns around, pulls the helmet off, and who is it? Dexter Lumis. And then he proceeds to kidnap, or should I say, Miznap, The Miz.
This was epic.
This was hilarious.
This played into so many different ideas, too, because we'd always see him kind of hovering around AJ Styles. So we thought, would they try turning him heel? And if you don't know Dexter Lumis, he has a very quirky gimmick that it's kind of half Dexter from the Showtime franchise.
Sure.
Kind of like the, I don't want to say serial killer type vibe, but there is a little we cross the lines here and there, so to speak. So
it's like Dexter Loomis quote unquote marrying Indy Hartwell.
Yeah,
or like he's just popping up in random spaces.
Yeah, he just pops up. He's very, very awkward in his gimmick, and it works.
It's amazing.
So, but the thing is, Triple H made it work, and he understands how to get that because he was doing something that prior to he came to WWE.
Yeah,
and it was always kind of like awkward, like it just didn't sink in. But he found a way to tap into that. He made it very comedic, like the stuff that you see with NXT with Indy Hartwell and Johnny Gargano and the Way family there. That was some of the best TV you're going to see. So now that he's on the main roster, you are seeing that, and especially him against The Miz. I never thought until I saw it how perfect that works because Dexter is so awkward.
Yeah.
And The Miz is so great about getting other people over.
And he's great at selling, too, because while he was getting dragged to the back, somebody I saw on Reddit, it was either Reddit or Twitter, screen capped the exact moment that like you had a perfect shot of The Miz's eyes. And there would look like he was not acting, obviously. But there was genuine terror in those eyes that he's like, holy fuck, I might not make it out of this.
Yeah.
Which was awesome.
The one thing that people don't get with The Miz, and I don't understand why, he gets the facial expressions and how to really sell a story arguably better than anybody. He's so good at it.
Yeah, he is.
And especially, like, that's one thing that I think a lot of wrestlers should watch is when you're in the ring and you start working the story and how it's affecting and everything. Take a look at how The Miz does it. Because I know, granted, he doesn't do all the crazy Young Bucks styles of moves, so to speak. But he's always consistent. He's always fresh with the character. He's always somebody that connects with the crowd one way or another. He's a perfect heel.
Yeah.
His babyface run is like still up for debate. I prefer seeing him as a heel, but this is a perfect way to get Dexter over, especially on the main roster. And I'm not saying don't doubt Indy Hartwell comes with him sooner than later.
Yeah, what happened next, we're going to skip for a minute. We'll talk about the last match of the show, which was between Edge and Damien Priest. Edge's ring gear. Holy fuck, that was awesome.
That was amazing.
That was dope ring gear. You had Edge emerge victorious, beating Damien Priest. However, there was obviously some shenanigans. The Judgment Day was ready to give Edge a concerto. Beth Phoenix was ringside. She hopped over and was ready to beat the holy living hell out of Rhea Ripley and all of Judgment Day with a chair. She was slamming the shit out of that thing.
Yeah, she was.
So that was awesome. And I know after the main event, after the show was over, Edge did bring up that, hey, WWE only ever really comes to Toronto once a year, and next time we come might be it for me. So he does appear to be getting ready to retire officially, which, hey, if he does, I'm all for. You had a great run when nobody else thought you would have another run.
He has a legendary comeback story in pro wrestling that few are ever going to come close to. So the fact we get to see him now is bonus in anything he does. And I am fully saying coming out of this, we are going to have a match with the Judgment Day versus Edge, Beth Phoenix, and a partner to be named. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb.
Sure.
And that's going to be Bray Wyatt's return.
Ooh.
I'm going to go off of something that we've talked about on 607 TWS, which if you want more pro wrestling content, that's always a way to go, and we'll talk about that a little later in the show. Rich brought up the idea about Bray Wyatt coming back and being the quote-unquote, making the deal with the devil to beat them. Yeah. I think that's where he does it.
Could be.
Because you have to pair somebody else with them. Could they do Rey Mysterio?
Which has been thrown out. Yeah,
they could. They could. But I think
story's there.
The story is there. But I think with Beth coming back now, because that's the one thing that they've had a problem with, is Rhea comes in there and she starts, absolutely thrashing everybody around her. Yeah. That now Beth can come back, they can have a program, and especially if Rhea gets one up on her too, that's an even bigger feather in her cap too. Rhea is one of the biggest features in all of pro wrestling. So if they want to do something like that, and then that's how you introduce that third party. And I'm not saying I don't have a timetable when. Yeah. But I could see that happening. And that will be huge.
I think if Rey ends up teaming, then you'll have Dominic turn heel.
Absolutely.
They've been teasing that long enough that I think it's going to happen eventually. But if it's not Rey and it ends up being Bray, well, then Edge is going over.
Yeah, it's going to happen, and that's the only way you can do that. And I tell you what, if you want us to talk about the spikes, the surprises that Triple H has been doing, there's only a few names that can cause a big enough one like that. Yeah. And I'm telling you this, if they wanted to rush it, they could try put it on that Friday before All Out. But I don't think they're going to. I think they have something else lined up for that day. But I would say sooner than later that we're going to see.
Speaking of Triple H and surprises, in between the tag match and the main event, we had the fucking surprise of all surprises.
Yes.
Because coming out of a commercial break, I will admit I wasn't looking at the television screen. It was coming out of commercial break. There was no noise. I was looking at my phone. And then I hear Johnny Gargano's fucking theme hit. And I dropped my phone and said, holy fucking shit, are you serious? Looked up, looked at the screen, and I saw the heart with the winking eye face logo that he has. And then it switches to Gargano on the Titantron. And then out comes the one, the only Johnny fucking Wrestling. Back in WWE after he said 9 months away from the ring because his wife and he just had their first child, Baby Wrestling, who got their own chant. Shout out to Baby Wrestling.
Yes.
He ran down through his credentials, for the crowd who might not know him. He was wondering if he was going to do this anymore. He kind of joked, I might not remember how to do this. Which end of the mic do you talk in?
Mm-hmm.
And had a great return that hey, I want to come back. I want to do WrestleMania. I want to do the Royal Rumble. I want to do Hell in a Cell. I want to do Survivor Series. And where's the only place I can do that? Here in WWE. Thoughts on Johnny Wrestling being fucking back?
Amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And especially one thing, too, which I saw a lot of this go online comments about.
Sure.
That the WWE universe, which we know is a different universe than the most internet wrestling community.
Sure.
Would not know who Johnny Gargano was because he was NXT.
That pop said otherwise.
That pop screamed volumes.
Uh-huh.
And especially, this was not Johnny's hometown.
Nope.
This was, like I say, see him up in with the Canadian audience was awesome, and they were excited to see him. They knew of the work. I mean, they know about NXT, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean this as WWE fans. Like, to what degree... It's debatable.
That crowd was hot because even the Dexter Lumis, when he pulled the helmet off, Dexter Lumis got a loud pop that I was a little surprised about.
No, the Toronto and Montreal crowds are always hot. Like, they are like some of the loudest fan bases up there. Sure, so, sure. But I agree with you though, because relatively new to the mainstream audience is Dexter Lumis.
Yeah, he is.
Nobody knows who the hell he is really, unless you watch NXT.
They haven't done a takeover in Toronto in quite some time.
Right, but the last time they did one, who was wrestling?
Johnny Gargano.
Exactly. And when you put on great performances like he does, and for anybody that doesn't understand why Johnny Gargano is such a big signing, he is one of the best wrestlers on the planet
Hands
today.
down.
And his track record in NXT, because before he came to NXT, he was tearing up the indies. We have actually seen him here at Excite.
Yes, we have.
So he's definitely a well-traveled superstar amongst the indie scene. And when we went to NXT, he was paired with Tommaso Ciampa in kind of a makeshift tag team that became DIY. With the greatest theme song ever. Of just DIY.
Still have it downloaded on my phone.
Exactly. And they put on some legendary tag team matches.
Yeah, they did.
With
FTR.
FTR comes right to mind.
If you want to look up a great tag team matchup, DIY versus FTR at the NXT TakeOver Toronto 2, I want to say.
I believe so.
It's a fucking amazing match.
It's a classic match. It's absolutely classic. And then when they finally broke the team up, it's one of the most dramatic switches in recent memory. In fact, they even covered up when Johnny's new theme music got leaked out. Yeah. But him versus Tommaso Ciampa was a feud for the ages.
For like a year.
And you know what? It never got stale. It never got old.
No.
It was always something new. They were really pushing a lot of envelopes with that one and pushing everything forward. And then when Johnny Gargano started facing Adam Cole.
Baby.
He just put on match after match after match. Like, he became Mr. NXT, Mr. Takeover.
Johnny Takeover.
And obviously when they did the transition phase.
Yep.
And he went with his wife, Candice LeRae, and they were doing their faction of The Way. They were one of the few leftovers, I would say, from the NXT 1.0 to 2.0.
Yep. And
they did they all bowed out gracefully. They all left on really great terms.
Yeah, they did a write-off in case Gargano didn't come back with Grayson Waller. Which Grayson Waller did tweet last night, quote, "Smart move, pussy. I'd run from me, too."
Oh, Jesus Christ. I didn't see that.
Yeah, he tweeted it.
I could imagine.
Yeah.
But that's just how Johnny did. And when Johnny has been gone for so long.
9 months.
9 months, which it feels longer, to be honest with you.
It does.
But this is how fast wrestling has been moving lately. Johnny had been heavily rumored to be going everywhere.
Yeah.
And it didn't matter where. Like, we heard rumors that he was going to be wrestling Blake Christian at JCW, which would have been fantastic, but that's not going to be happening at JCW anytime soon, unfortunately, with Blake now going to ROH/AEW. And you also heard that he was Johnny was going to be going work in the Indies. Johnny was going to go to Impact. Johnny was going to go to AEW, which everybody thought was.
Johnny was going to go back to WWE. Johnny was going to retire.
Yeah, and nobody really knew what was going on, and I thought he played it very, very smart.
He wasn't sure what he was. He even said it. He's like, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. You know, all I knew was I was changing diapers and watching Bluey.
Yeah, so I was going to say, he became a father, and then this is where you really have to sit back and think what you want your future to do.
Yeah.
And I think when he came back, and especially the big selling point, which this is why we keep harping about Triple H's impact, it's a whole new regime at WWE that had Vince and company still be there, Johnny wouldn't came back.
No.
I'll already say that right now.
Hands down, no.
No, because Johnny is a smaller sized wrestler per se. It doesn't take anything away from his athletic ability because he can go in the ring.
Well, and I think Johnny got a taste of what it would have been like to be on a main roster with Vince in control, because there was a brief month or two, a couple of years ago, when he was NXT champ, I think, and Ciampa was North American champ, or it could have been vice versa. They were champs. They were both champs of one of those those belts. I forget. And they were making appearances on Raw. It was their main roster debut technically, and the booking was shit. And honestly, it's forgettable because I can't even remember who they faced or what they did. You know, so he got a taste of that, and I think he went, that ain't for me.
Well, I think that's a big difference in the two different visions of the company. And that's why more people are getting into the Triple H version. Because he understands the business, and you don't need to be 6'8", 300 pounds of solid muscle. You can go in there and still put on great stories and put on great matches.
Yeah.
And this is something that Gargano is going to do on the main roster. I mean, he had his first segment reuniting with Austin Theory, Money in the Bank winner.
That was great.
Which they teased a lot of the...
Maybe, now I'm the veteran and you're the rookie.
Yeah.
You can carry my briefcase. You can do this. You can do that for me. Super kick.
Yep. So that definitely establishes him right in a program out the way.
Yeah.
Doesn't know if that's going to be the permanent one or just a nice way to introduce him to the fans.
I don't think she's re-signed because I haven't seen anything yet. Although then again, we saw nothing about Gargano up until he walked out.
Right.
I would love to see Candice LeRae show up. If they have 3 matches at pay-per-views, whatever it is, for Candice to come out at the third one and just go, "What the fuck are you guys doing?"
Yeah,
knock it off.
I think you'll see her come back sooner than later too. It depends on what they want to do with their personal lives.
Sure.
And listen, that's perfectly fine. I think this is a situation, though, for WWE, it's another win. And this is something that they got a big win, especially, which we'll talk about AEW and round on the bases. This is such a big win for them and so deflating for AEW, too, because a lot of momentum and viewership and social media buzz has now shifted back to WWE. They are now winning, and there's no question about it. You can't make an argument that they're not.
Yeah.
It's a whole breath of fresh air. People are tuning in droves to watch. The Raw rating was over 2 million.
Yeah.
And I don't care about preseason football or any nonsense like that. The fact they're drawing back to those numbers is huge.
Yep.
And they're maintaining around that level 1.8 to 2.0. That is something to saying they're building the brand up and people are giving it a shot and they're liking what they're seeing. If they keep doing this moving forward, we're going to have arguably the best closeout of the pro wrestling year that we've seen in quite some time.
I got to say, I was thinking about it last night. I know I'm way too far down the road, long-term booking, but Royal Rumble's going to be fucking insane. For the first time, and I can't remember how long, I'm legit more excited for Royal, because I always enjoy the Royal Rumble. It's one of my favorite pay-per-views. Premium live event, excuse me.
Yeah.
But just with all the returns, all the possibilities of who could make a run in, Royal Rumble's going to be fucking nuts, and especially with WrestleMania, the potential tag team matchup I brought up. What if you do Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn versus DIY?
I was thinking that. Oh, give it to me now.
Oh, fight forever.
Just put a ladder involved, and I'm there.
Oh my god. Oh.
That and Kevin allowed to do the package pile driver. I will be there. We saw Canadian Destroyer, so I'm
Edge through a Canadian Destroyer. Yeah,
listen,
last person I thought would have thrown one of those.
There's hope for everybody right now, but this is something to be really excited about if you're a WWE fan and just pro wrestling fan too, because it's when you have competition, it makes everybody go. And right now, it's such a great time to be a pro wrestling fan. So we can't stress it enough. If you haven't watched the programs lately, give it a shot. Come back to the fold and see what you like, see what you don't. And then hit us up on the hashtag ODPH pod. What is your thoughts about the WWE's past weekend of television? Are you loving it? Are you hating it? And we can have a genuine discussion about it because, there's some detractors that are out there. And I don't mind having those discussions, but we keep it positive and we keep it honest and very, very cordial, too. We don't need anybody just sitting there start dropping F-bombs. Had a couple of those this weekend. We don't talk about those people. They found what a mute button does, and it works wonders. But if you want more pro wrestling content, then you swing on over to 607 TWS on your favorite podcast platform. The Wrestling Show has a lot of news going on this weekend, so you definitely want to check that out. And make sure to follow and subscribe to Blogs Count Anywhere, the ODPH and 607 Pro Wrestling blog, only found on ODPHpodcast.com. That said, we're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You know what that sound means? It's another episode of Game for a Movie, where we ask, are you game for a movie?
Tell me, Andre.
There's no special features on that goddamn DVD, alright?
Oh, wow.
For Hansel and Gretel?
Hansel and
You
Gretel.
have a
What?
DVD
You watch it?
of
Yeah.
Hansel and Gretel.
She basically has sex with it, somehow.
Yeah.
Foreplay.
Yes.
She's chair foreplay.
I mean, they knocked it out of the park, which is why it's my number 3. So.
Oh! Yes.
I mean, I wouldn't be in it because this movie doesn't have women. But, you know, it's
You-
fine.
It
It's
has
right.
It has one.
You would have 3 lines of dialogue.
No,
But
she
how
has more
much-
than 3.
Oh.
Okay. So I'm actually gonna get, I earn my 4 sentences of dialogue rather than, here, have a paycheck. You just stood there on the screen. You're a sexy lamp.
Shape or form. Anyway, we're not.
Dark Phoenix 2.
No.
No.
Because they really hate each other, so we get to enjoy some wonderful comedic scenes of them hating each other so much that they get into physical altercations that include her biting ex-detective Phillips's dick.
Okay.
But we don't.
Okay.
In a hot tub.
I know all of those words were English, but the way you constructed them, I'm lost.
I'm not finding their range of them very well. For those who haven't rated us or liked or given us a review, don't say that we haven't given you anything of value after listening to this podcast. You now know the difference between an R-rated dick and an NC-17 X-rated dick. You're welcome.
Thank you guys for listening to Game for a Movie, where we ask, are you game for a movie? We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Coming back for another segment on this edition of the ODPH podcast. And Kevin Durant does not want to leave programming for us.
We're going to have to start charging this man rent.
Seriously, we're just going to have to get a segment name for his news and the drama that is Brooklyn right now. Because
As Kevin Durant turns.
you have to, it's gotten to that soap opera-esque level because as we were recording today.
The Bold and the Durantula.
I like it. We might have to go with that. We had a late-breaking story that we had to scrap a segment to accommodate because is this finally over, Pad? That's the question. I'm saying no.
No.
I'm saying I have thoughts after reading the press release that came out, and we got much to discuss about this. So hit them with the latest here, Pad.
So we have received a tweet but the Nets posted a tweet today as we record. No words attached to it, but it's a photo saying, quote, "The following statement has been released by General Manager Sean Marks. Quote, Steve Nash and I, together with Joe Tsai and Clara Wu Tsai, met with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman in Los Angeles yesterday. We have agreed to move forward with our partnership. We are focusing on basketball with one collective goal in mind. Build a lasting franchise to bring a championship to Brooklyn." Close quote.
Okay, so to recap to everybody, this past offseason, there has been more turmoil in Brooklyn than I can really remember in any time frame. Kevin Durant, all-star player. He is a championship winner with Golden State.
One of the best in the world.
Yeah, one of the best players in the world, even though he had to join the team to beat him to get a chip, but that's a whole different story.
Facts.
Formed the super team with Kyrie Irving, who is a very polarizing player in his own right. Obviously, nobly was with LeBron James for many years in Cleveland, went to Boston, didn't work out there, went to Brooklyn, and it has been a roller coaster of storylines and turmoil throughout their tenureship.
He's missed 60% of the games he could have played.
Yeah. And they've been having a third partner that has been...
It's a carousel.
It's a revolving door between James Harden, Ben Simmons, and...
Well, Ben Simmons is there. He ain't played yet.
Yeah, so...
Which I still got questions how that man passed a physical when he had off-season back surgery, but hey, you know.
I'm not asking any questions about that. We chalk that up to what, Pad?
Reasons.
So the latest is this summer hit, and Kevin Durant was asking for a trade.
Well, and he had just signed a 4-year, $100 and whatever million extension that hadn't even kicked in day one of.
Right.
And he was like, I want out. Trade my ass.
Yep. And and Kyrie Irving said the same thing, that he couldn't play in Brooklyn after they said, we're going to make this fix. We're going to make this happen.
Yeah, we're going to take over the offseason. We're going to sit down with Sean Marks, Steve Nash, and Joe Tsai. We're going to figure this out. Look up the footage. I'm not making this shit up. The press conference after they got, wait, refresh my memory. What happened to them?
Oh, yeah, they got swept.
Yeah, they got swept by the Boston Celtics.
4 games.
4 games.
4 games.
Post-game press conference, I believe it was Kyrie. Kyrie said, we're gonna, me and Kevin, we're gonna meet up with Sean Marks and Joe Tsai and Steve Nash. We're gonna get this figured out. We're gonna come back better than ever. So then everything you mentioned just happened. Durant asked for a trade. Kyrie, and this was maybe 30 minutes to an hour after Kyrie opted back in.
Yeah.
Because there was a will he, won't he, and he was approaching the deadline of when he could opt back in, or else become a free agent. So then we fast forward to, I believe it's about 2 weeks ago now. Kevin Durant met with Joe Tsai, the owner of the Brooklyn Nets. Reportedly was over in London, I believe, where Kevin Durant essentially told Joe Tsai, it's them or me. And in this case, the them is Sean Marks, the general manager of the Brooklyn Nets, and Steve Nash, the head coach of the Brooklyn Nets.
Who was handpicked by the powers that be, too.
Well, the powers that be in Kevin Durant and Kyrie, they wanted Steve Nash. But Durant turned around and said, hey, you can only have one, either the head GM and the head coach or me. Make a choice. And that got out, and you have the owner of the Brooklyn Nets put out a statement saying, I stand with my front office staff. I stick with my head coach and my general manager, and we're going to do what's best for basketball.
So that leads us to the roller coaster that has been going on for the past couple weeks. So we've been covering here on the ODPH, and every time we think we're finally going to get a stop in this, it keeps rolling.
Every time I'm out, they think I'm out, they pull me back in.
Because the trade rumors have been going up. Where is Kevin Durant going? Is he going to go to Portland? Is he going to go to
Portland, Boston, Memphis was thrown out there.
Memphis just came across the wire.
Toronto was thrown out there.
And there was even talk of the Lakers at one point. There was talk about Phoenix, but obviously
Knicks' name got thrown out there.
Yeah, everybody's name got thrown out. That was a major market
Golden
team for the
State
most part.
got thrown out there.
Yeah, and obviously with Kevin Durant's talent, sure, you could make that move.
Well, and that was the kind of the expectation was once he announced or kind of said, hey, it got out that, hey, I want to trade. It would have been, if it happened, the biggest trade haul package in NBA history because of someone of his talent and caliber. I can understand the Nets wanting the ransom, but I would say the Nets set the ransom note or the ransom money a little too high because it turned around and days turned into weeks and multiple weeks went by. Nothing ever happened. Kind of fizzled out and kind of died down. And obviously he never got traded.
Yeah, so it was coming across the wire that Memphis was making a late-minute run today as we were talking, that they had multiple draft picks, which is something that Brooklyn was looking at, that they might have been able to swing that. However, we get this press release, and it's basically saying, no, we're going to make this work. We finally sat everybody down. We've talked. I don't know, Pad.
I don't buy it, and I think some of the wording on this press release is very interesting because right at the start of it, Steve Nash and I, together with Joe Tsai and Claire Wusai, met with Kevin Durant and Rich Kleiman in Los Angeles yesterday. They could have just easily, because it's a statement from Sean Marks, it could have just said the Brooklyn Nets, together with owner Joe Tsai, met with Kevin Durant, but it very specifically says Steve Nash and I.
Yeah.
You don't really have to say, their names. It's kind of implied that, hey, the Brooklyn Nets, you would figure, okay, the president, the GM, the head coach, any other, notable and applicable front office people. Given the fact that it was Kevin Durant saying, fucking get rid of them.
Yeah.
I think it's very interesting and very deliberate choice of words that they said that.
Oh, I agree too, because what I think they're trying to do here is he's going to wind up leaving. And you're probably sitting at home or wherever you're listening to this podcast, and thank you for doing such, and going, well, Ken, how are you saying this? It's very simple. If you're going to try moving Kevin Durant at this stage, and with all the drama that is coming up, if you're a GM, do you want this headache on your roster?
Fuck no.
Exactly. But if all of a sudden it comes out that, hey, we're going to make this work, we've now achieved peace, Kevin's going to be able to play, and there's not going to be any drama, and really try selling that, you're a GM to say, hey, well, you know what, they had a conversation that we might be able to make this work.
Sure.
So it's more of a selling point than anything.
Well, I think part of the reason they weren't able to get rid of Durant is thank you, fucking Utah Jazz. You completely fucked the trade market.
Oh my God, yeah.
You completely fucked the trade market for the next 6 months to a year with that Rudy Gobert trade. That like everyone saw what Utah got for Rudy Gobert, and they're like, "Yep, that's the minimum number of draft picks we want." Because no disrespect to Rudy Gobert, Kevin Durant is obviously a better player than Rudy Gobert.
Facts.
And the fact that they got, what was it, like 7 first-round draft picks?
4 first round and I think 7 picks overall, something like that.
7 picks overall for Rudy Gobert. Yeah, Durant's worth more than that. So I think that's part of the reason why it didn't happen. But I think that I think he'll play this year in Brooklyn. I wouldn't rule out him getting traded down the line. Because this whole statement is such an odd statement to put out that, like, why do you have to say he's coming back? I think it's to just stop the media and stop the speculation online. And will he, won't they? What's going to happen? They're like, okay, they put this out. All right, listen, we got to put this out because otherwise we're going to be going from now until the start of the season with questions about the trade.
Yeah.
I think down the road he probably will get traded, but for right now, he's with the team.
So to correct that, no, it was 3 other players were moved along with the first 4 round picks.
Okay.
But still, it's first 4 rounds.
It's a lot of fucking picks.
It's a lot of picks, but I mean, that's the whole thing about this, that for Brooklyn, you're now stuck with what you made.
Right.
I have no sympathy for you. None. Because you knew Kyrie had issues in Cleveland and Boston.
Yeah.
You still brought him on your team. Okay, you have to own that one. You knew that when Kevin left Oklahoma City and went to Golden State, it was not exactly the best meshing of both styles of player and team philosophy. So you knew there was kind of a little rough spots there. You still brought everybody into your team. You tried letting the inmates run the asylum, and you know what? They've absolutely just ran it into the ground. There is absolutely nothing as a free agent that would make me want to come there if I was playing, because you're just having to deal with constant distractions to what you're trying to do. Because what you want to do is build a winning franchise. You're not doing that every time that you're in the New York media, which, hello, the biggest media market in all the world.
Right.
And you're doing nonsense like this. So now you're trying to appease everything and say, hey, you know what? Kevin's going to work here. It's going to be great. We're going to do this. One of 2 things is going to happen. Either Kevin's going to get traded within the next couple of weeks. I'm not saying it's going to happen tomorrow, but I'm saying within the next couple of weeks he's gone. Or Kyrie's gone. And they've assured him that they're going to move Kyrie. That's the only 1-2 combo that's going to happen.
See, I think it could just be the case of, hey, listen, we'll try and trade you, but for now, let's just stick this through because we can't get a trade deal that we think benefits us and the other team. Because, I mean, the man's 33 years old. He turns 34 in about 5 weeks. He's going to be 30. So, and this deal kicks in, so he'll be 37, 38 by the time this deal gets over. So the bulk of his best years are behind him. I realize LeBron's like 45 years old and still playing.
Freak of nature, though.
Freak of nature. But we'll see what happens with Durant. But you can argue that Durant's best years are behind him. So, okay, you can send him to Boston, but at the same token, you're going to leave Boston with absolutely nothing because you can almost guarantee that some of their star players are going to have to come back in the trade. And the same can be for all the other teams, Phoenix, Portland, Toronto, the Knicks, like every other team that he could have gotten traded to. It would have put, what's been his thing. He's wanted to prove he can win without, he win on his own, that he did, he's got the super team with Kyrie and Ben Simmons, but it's not the same as when he was with Curry and Clay. That like he wants to win a championship on his own. I'm sorry, if you go to any of the teams that have been mentioned of being traded to, you're not winning a championship on any of those teams.
No,
you're just not. And so you've only got so many years left ahead of you. You don't have time for them to do another rebuild. Whatever team you go to, Memphis, Toronto, Phoenix, Portland, Golden State, Boston, this year's a wash.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be next to nothing left for you to play with. And yeah, you're a great player. You can't single-handedly will a team to the conference finals and even the NBA finals by yourself.
Yeah,
that's just not going to happen.
No, it's definitely a tough situation. So there's only so many teams he could go to that are willing to deal with him about this. Miami would be one because they have a very deep roster. So I mean, they could sneak by in the East. Otherwise, but I think you got to send them out West. I mean, that's the whole thing about that. Memphis makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah,
a lot. They got 5 first-round picks. They can deal. Plus, you can also throw in a couple players. I mean, you still got Ja Morant. That's all you need, honestly. And I think they'd be fine. And then you just got to find some role players to definitely facilitate here and there. I mean, I think that would probably be the best landing spot for him. And if I'm Brooklyn, I take that shot. I mean, what else are you going to deal with? Because, you know what, if this season goes the way, which I think it's going to, you still have turmoil there. You still have Steve Nash there, which I'm sorry. If your star player has been screaming to move him the entire off season, I don't think sitting over a lunch setup and talking is going to end that kind of nonsense that's been going on.
I mean, you can disagree with people, and certainly I'm sure you, the listener in your life, have people at work or in your life that you just don't agree with,
Sure.
And the only thing that will heal that kind of wound or gap is time, and for the right now, there can be an agreement that they're going to do what's best for the team and whatever else, but it's still going to be awkward as fuck.
Well, that's the whole problem that you have, and especially when you start losing games, because you will.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody loses games.
Yeah.
How bad is that media pressure going to build on you?
Yeah.
And obviously we've seen right now you guys can't handle it when you're winning. So what are you going to do when you're losing? You haven't proven that you guys are going to be able to sustain in Brooklyn. I'm sorry. This is my opinion about this.
Yeah.
I think you have to move him, and this is just a big old Band-Aid to really cover up an open wound.
Mm-hmm.
Because the wound is you have to move Kevin Durant out of there. Like, he can't stay there, or Kyrie, and then you take your chances. And like I say, if you can work out a deal with the Lakers, that could work. Because, I mean, like we said, LeBron is the fountain of youth. Like, he is just playing at such a high level at his age, just re-signed a contract too.
Yeah.
With the amount of years he's played high-level basketball is just astonishing to me. He can make a run for a couple of years, and then you can just bow out gracefully.
I just don't see him getting moved just because they sat there for 2 months now, and fuck all's happened. And they've talked about moving Kyrie, but again, if you want to move Kyrie, it's going to be a fucking pain in the ass.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's going to happen this year. I can see it happening next year, but right now, no. And in terms of reaction, I haven't seen too much in terms of player reaction. You get one person's reaction.
Yes, we did.
That being Patrick Beverly, tweeting, quote, "Y'all can sit and don't say nothing, but that ain't cool. It's dudes with families out here who haven't gotten a job because of this KD shit. And to be on and off ain't cool. Blessing gang, prayer emoji, basketball emoji." He then added about an hour later, quote, "It's not good business. These owners can't wait until new deal comes. All we doing is hurting the future. God bless, good day, blessing gang, prayer emoji." Kevin Durant saw Beverly's first tweet and quote tweeted it saying, hashtag blame KD, to which Patrick Beverly quote tweeted Kevin Durant's tweet and said, "Damn gang, who said I was talking about you? I'm speaking of how it was done. Both sides need to keep that private, but noted." Close quote. Patrick Beverly, who said I was talking about you?
You said it in the first tweet, right?
He did. Quote, "Y'all can sit and don't say nothing, but that ain't cool. It's dudes with families out here who haven't gotten a job because of this KD shit."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so instant reaction to this. I don't think he's wrong.
No.
But obviously when you have a wide open Twitter, that can be rules for disaster. I think airing it out, I can understand what he's trying to say with this too, because everybody is waiting to make moves depending on what goes on with KD.
It's the same in any sport.
Exactly.
Baseball, football, like there's always that one big free agent, especially baseball. There's always that one big free agent, pitcher, hitter that you're waiting on to move so that everything else can happen because there's multiple teams interested in that one player. And until that one player moves and the other teams lose out on him, they can't move on to anything else.
Exactly.
That's a part of the business.
It's a part of the business, but that's why everybody lines up possible scenarios. So then, if one is not available, you go to option 2. If 2's not available, you go to option 3. You keep working down till you can cover that spot on your roster. So it's not that new, but I think it's just a reflection of just how it's wearing on other players. Like every day when we're talking about the NBA, and we should be talking about something else that's more exciting, we're talking about the drama in Brooklyn yet again. And then with what's going on with KD, because, I mean, obviously his player, his ability to play on the court, this is what's warranting all this attention, because a team can become an instant contender, if not champion, with him on the roster. Just getting him from point A to point B is what's holding everything up. And that holds up business for a lot of other people. But, when you're playing professional sports, this is par for the course.
Yep.
So this isn't anything like, oh my gosh, like, what are we going to do?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Like, everybody just has to sit tight and wait. And then when something happens with KD, which, like I say, might not happen today, might not happen tomorrow, might not happen this season. We don't know. We can only speculate about somebody making a move. It could happen. I mean, God forbid somebody gets hurt opening night.
True.
Tears an ACL, does something like that. Then Brooklyn could make a move if they really want to, and then you go fleece an organization. It's just depending on what they're trying to do. But this is what comes when you mix sports with business. It's not exactly the nicest thing in the world. But
No.
ever so, it's going to be more drama in Brooklyn until further notice. Even though everybody's acting like it's nice, I still think one of the two big superstars is getting moved.
Probably.
But we'll have to wait and see about that. In the meantime, hit us up on that hashtag ODPHpod. What is your thoughts about the latest Kevin Durant drama? I'm expecting to hear a lot of answers about this one from some good friends on Twitter, so definitely hit us up at ODPH Podcast. We're going to take a quick break. We'll be right back.
This is Tom from Tom Joe Lou,
This is Matt from Sideroom Sounds.
and you're listening to ODPH Podcast.
Wanna go where no one knows my name, to the desert, the oceans, or the plains. 'Cause I wanna...
Coming back on the final segment of this edition of the ODPH Podcast, Pad, what you got?
Got to talk a little local minute. Looking at the Binghamton Rumble Pony schedule from the last week, they were on the road playing Richmond. They won their game on Tuesday by the final score of 8-2. Lost on Wednesday by the final score of 9-0. Won on Thursday, 7-4. Lost on Friday, 8-4. Lost on Saturday, 5-1, and then won on Sunday by the final score of 6-5. Looking ahead to this week, they are on the road again, playing a 6-game series against the Reading Fightin' Phils. The game times are all 7 o'clock. Saturday, they're playing at 6:45, and then Sunday, they're playing at 5:15. They do, however, return home on Tuesday, August 30th, to play a series against the Somerset Patriots, that being the AA affiliate of the New York Yankees. So definitely going to want to get some tickets ahead for that. Also of note, Thursday, September 1st, Bucky fucking Dent is going to be in town. Yeah, going to have Bucky Dent appearance. So definitely be. And I hear tickets are limited on that if they're not sold out already. So if you're in the 607 area and you're looking at meeting Bucky fucking Dent, because yes, it is fucking Dent according to the folks up in Boston.
Yes.
Definitely an opportunity to check out. And for more information, tickets and all that good stuff, bingrp.com.
That said, we're going to close out this edition of the ODPH talking a little AEW wrestling. Because obviously we had a lot of wrestling to dissect this week.
Yes, we did.
And like I say, if you're listening to 607 TWS, you're reading blogs kind of anywhere, we try covering as much as we can, but we definitely want to throw a lot of attention to this because there was an announcement that was made following last week's AEW Dynamite. That definitely caught my attention. It caught Pad's attention. Now, we do stress Pad is not an AEW fan.
Nope.
He does not shy away from this.
Nope.
But he gives his honest opinion because that's what I'm looking for this.
Yes.
So last week on AEW Dynamite, CM Punk came back.
Yep.
And obviously, well-noted wrestler. Obviously, we are now 1 year into the return of Punk to pro wrestling. After taking some hiatus off from WWE and a long drama situation there. And when he came back from his injury, he is technically the world champion of AEW.
Yep.
Came back out, and he addressed the crowd. Now, he did the run and save the week prior, so this is the first time we've seen him with a live microphone.
Yep.
Had some choice things to say about Hangman Adam Page, the former champion. Eddie Kingston, who he's had a very, very noted verbal battle with over the years, to put it mildly.
Yeah.
And then, obviously, had the interim champion, John Moxley, come out and address him and get into a little promo battle of their own.
Which was good. I saw the clip.
It was very good. It was a good promo battle. I don't think Punk was ready for what John was bringing to him.
Probably not.
I'm going to say that right now. And Punk is exceptionally well on the mic, too. We have to give him his credit with that. After a start of the show where they're kind of going back and forth about it, they even came back out midway of the show. It was announced that their match, which is originally scheduled to be the main event for AEW All Out, taking place September 4th, live on BR Live and traditional pay-per-view, is now going to be on free TV this Wednesday as we record, August 24th, and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on TBS Network. Pad, what I'm asking you is, as a casual fan, and obviously we know we can't stress enough, you're not a fan of AEW.
Yep.
But as an outsider looking in, what does this moving of the main event mean to you?
It's interesting. It's the one thing I've always heard, that you never want to give away a pay-per-view main event on TV for free, unless it's for like some shenanigans reasons, which, let's face it, this has got to be shenanigans reasons. Either one guy hates the other and they just want to get it over and done with now, or I think it was Rich brought it up on this week's 607 TWS as a ratings pop, which I could see. I don't understand why you're doing this on free TV and you've essentially painted yourself into a corner with this, because I can't see any outcome of this. There's only, let me rephrase. There's a couple of outcomes you can do with this where you don't get egg on your face.
Mm-hmm.
Moxley or Punk win straight up.
Yep.
That you're no egg on your face there, but that's about the only one because, okay, well, if you do a 60-minute time limit draw again, like I realize I don't watch AEW, but I hear enough from you that they've done that a number of times.
Numerous times.
That to me feels like I just wasted the last, if I'm watching something, I realize this is the American in me and, your overseas listeners are going, oh, I watch, 90-minute draws in football all the time. Listen, I can't sit there for that long and watch a tie. Sorry, is what it is. But if I'm a casual viewer of AEW and I'm watching Dynamite and you got Punk and Moxley go an hour and it's a draw, why the fuck are we doing this? Like that's a waste of time. That's one of the notable things that I read online from people who have complaints about AEW is how there's not enough time for everybody, that there's some folks they feel should be getting featured or maybe getting some airtime that they're not. So with that in mind, you're really going to sacrifice an hour of time to these two guys when you were going to plan it on the pay-per-view? It just doesn't make any sense to me.
That's the situation I think that is most puzzling about this, and I think it kind of reads a couple different ways. One, it's a bold strategy.
Yeah.
It's absolutely bold by Tony Khan and the powers that be there.
Yeah.
Because what you're going to do is, like you touched upon, they need a clean finish. If they have this go to a time limit draw, like they've done in previous outcomes, Daniel Bryan versus Kenny Omega comes right to mind. This is a situation, or Hangman Page, I should say, rather. This is a situation that they are going to really have some problems with trying to sell a pay-per-view event in roughly under 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are you going to do this? Because what they have to do, and you're putting a lot of pressure on Punk and Moxley, is deliver a match of some sort that is going to completely generate you to get on your Twitter, get on your social media, and get basically, like, I would have to get on there and I would have to sell, Pad, yo, you got to check this match out. This is, oh my God, we have to see this again. We have to go get the pay-per-view. Like, you have to generate that kind of reaction.
And you got to do it no commercials, in all honesty.
Well, you have to. I mean, some of the production work, and we've been very critical about this past couple weeks, and I'm not taking back my stance on it. I think, in my opinion, they have done some very, very badly timed picture-in-pictures. They have to go commercial-free if you're going to go an hour with this or however long they're going to give time.
Mm-hmm.
And I fear, and note I'm worrying this, I fear they're going to open up the show with this.
Mm.
Because if you don't, you're almost going to telegraph what's going to happen. But this is the problem about doing a main event like this, which arguably is the biggest main event they could do for AEW.
It is right now. I mean, because, the only other outcomes I can see happening with this are DQ.
Mm-hmm.
So, shenanigans, we got to run it back, get all out. Whoops, sorry, folks. They brawl and they just run. They brawl out of the arena and they don't come back. And it's just like, oh, well, fuck, sorry, folks. We got to run it back and all out. But you, meaning Tony Khan, have said you're not going to do those kind of finishes.
Yeah, but
and then okay, what? So Moxley or Punk win clean. Okay, so what the fuck are you going to do for All Out in 10 days, 9 days, whatever it is?
Yeah,
I know people have been throwing out Hangman Page, but I'm sorry, if Punk wins, Punk just made him look like a fucking punk.
Yeah,
or excuse me, made him look like a bitch. Calling him out. Which again, that was not, from what I've read and what I've heard online, was not planned. And I know the photo was circulating not vastly. I know everyone's running with being the elite excuse, which he was training guys back in the thing. No, sorry. I saw the photo live on Twitter as it was happening. Hangman was sitting in fucking catering.
Mm-hmm.
He was not training guys. BTE. Sorry, BTE is not gospel, folks.
Yeah.
It's scripted. You can't have Hangman do it because Punk just made him look like a bitch, and called him out and he didn't answer. And I know people throw, MJF's going to come back. Okay, MJF just got his ass handed to him at the last match you saw him. Not the pipe bomb, but the night prior, he got power bombed 1,800 times and basically took his ball and went home. So you're really about to tell me a man who just got his ass handed to him by Wardlow is warranted enough to come back and immediately jump the line and get a title shot? Sorry, I don't buy that either.
It's the problem they have, and this is why doing this match on TV, it's bold, but you honestly are relying on your fan base to get so passionately invested in this that it's going to make a casual fan like you want to tune in.
Right.
For whatever reason. And I don't know how they're going to do this, to be honest with you. This is a pay-per-view match that should be on pay-per-view.
Absolutely.
So the fact you're running on free TV, that's a great thing. For us as a fan, perfect. No arguments.
But it would make sense if you were in the middle between two pay-per-views.
Yes.
Not 2 weeks out. 2 weeks out from one of your big ones, if not your biggest one.
Exactly, because no matter what you're going to do, you're going to have to try replacing value.
Sure.
I don't think you can at this stage, because what your fan base is going to do is you have to really have them invested in this. Sure. Punk or Moxley wins, one of the two.
Sure.
Then you're going to try invoking an immediate rematch clause. I mean, that's the only spin you could do, but that's not enough for me to spend $50 on this thing.
Right, and that's the thing is, depending on how this goes, this could or probably will affect the buy rate of the pay-per-view.
Yeah.
Because depending on how this goes, if it's, I think if it's shenanigans and you just run it back, you have the match officially at the pay-per-view, then buy rate will be what it was, not much affected. But I think if it gets dropped and it's somebody else other than because I agree with you, while I don't watch AEW, I do agree with knowing what I do, which is admittedly not much. I do agree that Moxley Punk is the best matchup you can do right now. That being said, if it's not Moxley Punk, there might be some casuals who look at that and go, well, I really was excited for Moxley versus Punk, but you know what? I already saw that, and I don't think this matchup can live up to it. I'm going to save my $50.
No, that's the problem that they have, especially with the buy rate that they really need to sell home. That's something that this is so crazy to see. And I don't think that they, as much as they have a talented roster, and they have they have a very deep one. I'm not taking anything away from that.
Sure.
But if you're trying to sell fans to tune in and drop $50 for a main event, and granted, I always say recommend have watch parties. Don't go steal it.
Oh, absolutely.
So, if you really scream, I'm with AEW, then chip in and pay for the thing.
Yeah.
You really have to give them some incentive or value. If you have Punk and Moxley, and let's say it's a terrible match for reasons, why should I spend money to tune in to watch it? That's the argument you got to have here. And sure, you're going to say, well, that's just one match on the card, but that's the marquee match. I'm sorry. That's the first one. That's going to be the last match anybody sees. Everybody remembers the last match and the ending of it. If you don't come with it, you don't really establish something special here. Why are you even doing it on a pay-per-view? That's the argument you're going to have. And no matter who you try plugging and playing in, if Punk wins, which I assume he's going to win, then you have the problem of you try really forcing a storyline with 2 weeks with no real reason for it with him and Paige.
Right.
And then you hope for the best there. Or are you really banking that MJF is going to be your savior when you've cooled him off enough?
Yeah.
And he has 1 week to work with an open microphone.
MJF's good. I don't think he's that good.
Exactly. Not at this stage.
And I'm looking at the Wikipedia page for All Out, which is scheduled to take place on September 4th, 2022, from Hoffman Estates, Illinois, at the Now Arena. The announced matches you have is To Be Determined versus To Be Determined. This is the tournament final for the inaugural AEW World Trios Championship. So you got the Trios titles on the line. You've got a 6-man tag team matchup between the Pinnacle, that being Wardlow and FTR, taking on the Lethal Connection, that being Jay Lethal, Satnam Singh, and Sanjay Dutt. And
let me point out, too, Wardlow is the TNT champion. FTR is the Ring of Honor tag team champions.
Yep.
So they're not getting defended on the show.
Right. And then you've got Thunder Rosa versus Toni Storm in a singles match for the AEW Women's World Championship. And then you've got the Casino Ladder match. So as of right now, because the fucking title match is going on this Wednesday, you've got 4 matchups announced for this, which I'm sorry, if this is me, if I'm a casual viewer, I'm looking at this going, yeah, I'll save my $50 and just read the results and catch the highlights online.
Yeah, there's one match that they don't have updated on Wikipedia there, and that's Sammy Guevara versus Eddie Kingston. That was actually the first match announced. But you're right though. There's a big selling point that you need to do because this is selling the show.
Yeah.
Your AEW fan base has stayed consistent watching on television. Whatever you want to take for the ratings, listen, that's just a benchmark to let you know what you have.
Sure.
You hover around 1 million each week.
I believe it was 957 last week.
Right. But you're around that mark. You haven't grown over 1.1, 1.2 consistently.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't a shot. This is just, I'm stating the facts.
Yeah,
here.
yeah.
Rampage is Rampage. I don't count Rampage because that is a whole different ball of wax.
Rampage, I think, is about on par with what NXT does, sometimes less.
Yeah, it hovers around that 350 to 500,000.
Yeah.
Which, okay, it is what it is, but it's a secondary show. And
it's a secondary show that's taped, 48 hours, whatever it is, before it actually airs.
Yeah, so that's, like I say, I'm not including that for this argument's sake.
Yeah.
It's a whole different ball of wax with that one. But you're hovering around 1 million viewers.
Yeah.
If this buy rate doesn't spike
Mm-hmm.
to the highest Dynamite of all time, because you're giving them the biggest match you can.
Yeah.
What is that saying going into your pay-per-view? That's the question I have. Because you honestly are giving away your best match for free, and you're not getting anything back in return. Like, it's such a weird slope to walk.
Oh, it is.
But this is where the problem is going to lie for him. And they do have a decent show lined up for Dynamite, don't get me wrong, this week. Because you also have on their Death Triangles taking on Will Ospreay and Aussie Open, so they're coming over from New Japan Pro Wrestling for the Trios tournament. Dax Harwood is taking on Jay Lethal. You're also having, if you're really following the storyline of Billy Gunn and his the Gun Club turning on him and that whole nonsense. I mean, there's something for you there. Ricky Starks is having an interview segment, and so is Daniel Garcia and Chris Jericho because of the drama going on there because of last week's main event.
Sure.
So that said, and I believe Britt Baker is also wrestling on the card too against Kylan King. You're also having a card there that you really need to sell, and I'm sorry, if this does not do well in the ratings, this is a bad sign going into the pay-per-view. It is absolutely something to be fearful of.
Yeah.
This is one show that they can't miss on, and I stress this. If you're an AEW fan, you need to be out in full support for this. You need to go out and watch this. You need to really wave the I'm with AEW flag and really try sending the message this is going to be worth the time. You can't do it like a toxic fan, though.
Sure.
But we have to be very objective about this. I know I'm going to be watching on Twitter, and I'm definitely going to be commenting about this. But if this match does not deliver, and then we immediately get told, well, we're going to run.
Shucks, folks.
We're going to run this back in 7 days or 9 days or whatever it is.
Yeah.
But we're going to add somebody to it. I don't know if that's going to be the way to go for this.
No.
I really don't.
No.
So we'll have to wait and see what's going to happen. But I'm going to say this. This is a very important Dynamite for AEW.
Pivotal.
It is. It's very, very, very pivotal. If they don't nail this out of the park and this drops in ratings, and I have to say this will if I have to make a guess, this will be around 1.1. It has to be. It should be a little higher, but if you're going to really say that this is supposed to be the main event of your biggest show of the year and it does not draw ratings, that is a clear sign that there is trouble.
I'll say it'll do in the 989 range.
Okay.
It'll pop a little bit, but it won't crack a million.
Okay. No, and that's fair, but this is going to be something that is going to get benchmarked. And especially with how WWE has been stealing social media, how they've been stealing ratings, how they've been stealing a lot of attention that is usually given to AEW, they need to come back and respond with the best show they can put out possible. This is the challenge, and I know that we have people from AEW that listen to this show, and I'm saying this with the nicest warning to you. You have to deliver a classic this week. No ifs, ands, or buts. This has to be a perfect show. You have to get everybody out in social media to really generate a buzz. You have to generate a huge rating. If not, this is big problems going into the final week before All Out.
And AEW's got no excuses for big ratings on Wednesday because I'm looking at the NFL schedule. There are no preseason games scheduled on Wednesday night.
The no excuses.
They got no excuses.
This is how it's going to go down.
If it was on Thursday, there might be a different story. Green Bay's playing Kansas City.
Yeah.
But I'm looking. There's looking for preseason week 2. The last set of games were on Monday night. That was the Jets and the Falcons. There is nothing else until Thursday.
So that said, there's the challenge, AEW. Do you accept it, or is it going to be a long week to All Out? That's going to be the question we're going to be talking about on social media moving forward. That said, Pat, the music you heard on this edition of the ODPH is that of Brian Wolf. He's got a new EP out. He's always out playing somewhere. We're going to go to find out what's going on with him.
ODPHpodcast.com.
Right on. You swing over to the music section. You check out everything going on with him. Everything going on with Second Suitor. Shout out the Robots, Floodlands, Yard Party, Tom Jolu. A lot of those bands, too, are going to be involved with Porch Fest.
Heyo.
So that's a local live event that's going to be happening in Binghamton on the 27th, 28th, I believe.
Yeah.
They all have different show times, so I'm just going to tell you right now, follow them on the social media links that we have given you on ODPHpodcast.com. You can definitely catch up and find out where they're playing out. I'm going to try making some shows if I can, because it's a crazy weekend, but it's always a cool time to see because they just play on the fronts of a lot of people's houses.
Yeah, if you go to Facebook and you search Porch Fest 2022 Binghamton, there is an event on Facebook, and there you can get all your information over there.
And that is this weekend, too, as we're talking about, 27th, 28th?
Yes.
Yes, so you definitely want to go check that out. Definitely on the ODPH website, though, we have to shout out all our amazing patrons. Like, this is something that I'm completely astonished with. That, yeah, it might say it's a small number, but when we started doing this whole podcast thing, I was actually shocked that anybody was even saying you guys should do one. So let alone that we have some great sponsors like Rich from the 3FN Podcast, Stu from SWO Productions, John from the Pint Podcast, and Joey from the Soul Wizard Podcast. All are fantastic patrons. And if you want to check that out, patreon.com/ODPH Podcast, $1 or one tier, $2, and a lot of content on the way. Also, while you're at ODPHpodcast.com, check out Parlay Points. New blogs are dropping. Have a brand new blogs count anywhere out right now. If you're looking for comic reviews, we got that. Dre Driven did a review this week, too.
Heyo.
And we had some late-breaking news via Twitter from your coach, my coach, the coach, Coach Duffy.
Goddamn right we do.
Pat, do you have that lined up?
I do. So we received a photo from Coach Duffy. It's a screenshot of his email that reads, quote, Mr. Sean Duffy, on behalf of the PBLA, I would like to extend a formal invitation to attend our inaugural professional combine taking place in Elmira, New York from September 9th through the 11th.
Big news for him. So congratulations, Coach. And he has said, and I quote, when he's coming back from vacation, he is going to be sending out some vlogs, some footage for us that we'll be putting on the Parlay Points section under the ODPH Extra.
Mm-hmm.
So definitely keep an eye out for that. Also, remember, check out the Classified section, which has friends of the show like 3FN Podcast, Dragon Master Games, organizational link support in Black Lives Matter, voter registration, huge thing this year. So definitely make sure you check that out, and all the amazing other pod groups that we are into. So you definitely want to check that out. The directory, which, Pat, how many providers are we on?
823,000.
Sounds about right, and we grow every single day. So if we are not on your favorite podcast player, let us know, and we'll try getting it up there for you, because we put all the links to the show on every single player. So if you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, you listen on Good Pods, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it, if we are on there, we make the players so easy for you to go hit follow, play, and get involved with everything going on with the ODPH. Also this week, TeePublic, you know what time it is, so definitely make sure you are checking out that link as well. All of that and so much more. If it's the ODPH, it can be found at odphpodcast.com. That's all I got for this week. So for the one only Padawan J,
fuck the Astros.
I'm your host, Ken M. Thank you, as always, for listening to the ODPH Podcast, better known as the Ocho Duro Parlay Hour. We'll see you next time.
Gotta be down to the punch. Gotta be down to the punch. 'Cause they can't bring me down if I'm already under the ground. I'm gonna try to make them laugh. I'm gonna try to make them laugh. 'Cause the laughing man's got nothing to say about me. They're judging only by what they can see. This behavior goes way back to ancient history. I hope one day I'll find a way to be free. I know I can't change them. All I can change is me. I'm gonna stick to the master plan. Once I come up with a master plan, it's hard to know just how to deal with this sort of thing. I'm gonna try not to care, but it's so hard not to care. So I'll just go my own way and hope that they go theirs. They're judging only by what they can see. This behavior goes way back to ancient history. I hope one day I'll find